Ohio gozaimasu. Let me just take a brief moment to thank all of you here today, both the Japanese and the Americans who are here, for allowing me the honor of a lifetime to be the ambassador to this great nation. My family and I fell in love with Japan and with the Japanese people during our 4 years here, after spending 25 wonderful years in Silicon Valley. And I just have to tell you, it's great to be back. So thank you for having me. I also want to congratulate Mikitani-san, a good friend, over the last several years, for putting together this important event for the second straight year. I think it's obvious. Just take a look around you, take a look at the speakers on the agenda and the subjects that they will address. This, I believe, is the future of U.S., Japan, innovation, and our partnership. The cross-fertilization of inventors and entrepreneurs from both countries, learning from each other, inspiring each other, and sharing marketplaces. When I first came to Japan in 2009 as the U.S. ambassador, I decided to make the promotion of entrepreneurship an important part of my agenda. I did so for many reasons, the most important of which was, as the United States' most important ally in this region of the world, it was absolutely essential that Japan regain its economic momentum. A strong economic nation means a strong strategic partner. And it has been proven over and over and over again that a healthy entrepreneurial environment is critical to a dynamic and growing economy. But to tell you the truth, when I first started talking about the importance of entrepreneurism here, I was told by people in all walks of life, whether government officials, CEOs, or even my own embassy at the time, that Japan just wasn't ready to embrace the entrepreneurial path, a way of life that requires taking risks, being different, and the willingness to fail. But I simply did not believe it to be true then, and I don't believe it to be true now. After all, this is the country that after World War II, through its phenomenal entrepreneurial endeavors, rebuilt an entire nation in just a generation and turned it into one of the world's greatest economic powerhouses. And for the 4 years I lived here in Japan, as I traveled all over this great country, to all 47 of your prefectures, I became even more convinced that not only is this one of the most innovative countries in the world, but that a new wave of entrepreneurism was in your future. I have not been at all disappointed, and this conference is just one demonstration of that fact. Now, I'm not naive. I understand that there's a lot of work to do here in Japan to fully unleash its entrepreneurial potential. For one, it is absolutely essential that government policies be implemented as part of Prime Minister Abe's third arrow to provide the regulatory framework that would allow entrepreneurism to flourish, whether it's through deregulation, as the Prime Minister just spoke of, tax policies, the government's procurement policies, or policies that facilitate mobility in the workplace and the enhancement for the opportunities for women. The Prime Minister just spoke very eloquently about his agenda in this regard, and just his presence here, in and of itself, is an important message that the Japanese government is embracing Japan's new economy. But just as important as any one or group of governmental policies is continuing to promote the cultural values that are necessary for entrepreneurs to thrive. The importance of risk-taking, the recognition that failure comes with risk, and that innovation comes from learning from these failures and being given second chances. The Prime Minister himself is a case in point for this country's embrace of those important values. Just over a year ago, I had the honor to join Prime Minister Abe and President Obama in the Oval Office, where the Prime Minister spoke incredibly eloquently about his own appreciation at being given a second chance by the Japanese people to lead this nation, and his determination to repay the people's trust by learning from his past mistakes and making the most of his second opportunity. This is a powerful message. Young people, people all across this country with big ideas and dreams need to hear it. I can't hammer home this one point enough. Silicon Valley is full of stories of second and third and fourth chances. Going back as far back as Nolan Bushnell, whose first venture in video games absolutely flopped because it was too complicated. But he got back on his feet and he built Atari, which inspired the entire video game industry as we know it today, and one which Japan has obviously dominated. Or Steve Jobs, who was famously fired by Apple Computer. Instead of shrinking into his failure, he rechanneled his energy and built Pixar, now the most successful animation studio in the world, before he returned to Apple to build the products that revolutionized the computer industry, the telephone industry, the music industry, and I could go on. And I know Larry Ellison, the keynote speaker here today, and one of the luminaries of Silicon Valley, has stories of his own in this regard. Now, I want to say how profoundly impressed I am by just how far this country has come in just the past few years. A little over 4 years ago, when I first arrived in Japan, the downfall of LiveDoor was the most talked about example of the Japanese startup experience. And despite success stories like Rakuten, SoftBank, Gree, DNA, and others, LiveDoor really seemed to unfairly stigmatize the entire industry. But now we have role models one after another, people like Akira Morikawa of Line, who's with us here at this event today. Morikawa-san did what people say just doesn't happen here in Japan. He left a great job at a great company with presumably the prospect of lifetime employment to become an entrepreneur. And after the devastating events of March 11th, just over 3 years ago, he created a product that enabled people to communicate easily via text. As you know, it caught on, and today that company is more profitable than any other messaging app out there. It's said to be worth billions. And of course, while Morikawa-san must be very pleased with that, more important is what it means for Japan. Jobs, economic growth, an economic engine for the future of this country. Morikawa-san, like Mikitani-san before him, is charting a new course for this country that is so very important. And I hope that across this country, from university students with big ideas to innovators thinking of leaving the comfort of corporate jobs, people are taking note. It's also important that more than once we celebrate, we take the opportunity to step back and celebrate people like Morikawa-san. And we celebrate him as much as we celebrate Ichiro or Rakuten's and now the Yankees, Tanaka-san. Because entrepreneurs like these are to be admired as we do our greatest sports stars. Now, our celebration of Japan's embrace of entrepreneurism is happening at a very opportune time. it is clear to me that we are only at the beginning of another incredibly innovative period in history. The technology industry has always had the ability to reinvent itself. In the 1960s and 1970s, it was the growth of the semiconductor industry. In the 1980s, it was the emergence of the personal computer and the associated software. In the 1990s, the emergence of life sciences and biotechnology, along with the beginning of the internet, took hold. And with this century has come the massive migration toward mobile and the cloud and the digitization of data. Just a couple of decades ago, it was really absurd to believe Steve Jobs' assertion that every home should have a computer. Now, virtually everyone has a computer in his or her pocket. I recently joined the Salesforce.com board, and I was amazed to find that Mark Benioff, its CEO, virtually runs the company from his smartphone. And not only that, the explosion of mobile, social media, and cloud computing, which will be discussed here today, means new technologies are capturing massive amounts of data, which is in turn spawning more technology and analytics that is helping us to understand trends and connect dots, leading to more efficiency. Innovation in IT is beginning to transform virtually every industry, whether it's transportation, real estate, healthcare, energy, agriculture, housing, or education. I've seen examples of this every day since I returned to Silicon Valley 9 months ago. Look at a company like Tesla that makes an electric car run on software, and in doing so is taking the American auto industry by storm. Defying conventional wisdom in my own country that the industry was dominated by Detroit. Or Uber, which is also revolutionizing the transportation industry, but in a different way. Across America, more and more people are reaching for their smartphones and getting an Uber ride because it's more convenient and more comfortable. By the way, I recently had the honor of attending Uber's launch here in Tokyo this past March. Uber's brand is fast becoming one that consumers all over the world know and recognize. And the many thousands of business people and tourists that visit Tokyo every day, and particularly the hundreds of thousands that will visit Japan for the 2020 Olympics, will find it easier to visit here if they can utilize a globally trusted technology as part of meeting their transportation needs. Let me just give you one more example. While much has been made about the problems that the clean tech industry in the United States has been having, companies like O-Power, who also just launched their service here in Japan and is here with us at this event today, is using technology and social pressure to increase energy efficiency. O-Power simply enables utilities to show consumers how much power they are consuming in comparison with homes just like yours and mine. It turns out that this has an incredible impact and is more impactful in ways that cost and environmental concerns cannot. And I just want to take a moment to congratulate O-Power on their successful IPO this past week. Now, I could go on with examples, but you get the point. These companies are creating value because they're changing the way that we live our lives, the way we procure services, and the way we interact with each other. I'm convinced that more and more of these transformational companies will come from right here in Japan. Let me just give you one more reason I'm excited about the future. Everywhere I now go in Silicon Valley, I'm hearing that companies are not only re-looking to Japanese markets, but also to Japanese strategic partners. This includes, for example, a biopharma company that has developed a technology to isolate individual cells for analysis and ultimately personalized treatment. It wants Japanese partners. Another company that is building text-to-video human avatars that will bring your texts and emails to life and enable sports stars and celebrities to literally be everywhere all the time. It is seeking Japanese partners. And by the way, I believe there's a huge potential in partnerships between Japan's large public and private institutions with big data and analytic companies in Silicon Valley. These Japanese institutions, many of which set policies or have a major impact on the Japanese economy, are rich in information. Imagine the potential for a JR, for example, which captures import information about the habits of the 90% of the Japanese who ride a train every day. Or a 7-Eleven or Lawson's. How many Japanese visit a kombini every day? I did every day I was here in Japan. And the combination of the data these companies possess with technology in Silicon Valley that can expose trends and provide analysis that helps better understand the consumer will create massive value for both our countries. Japan and the United States are ideal in their ability to collaborate on these types of projects. There is also so much our two countries can learn from each other. I believe the United States can regain its leadership in the wireless broadband area by partnering with Japanese corporations like SoftBank, who clearly have a technological edge. A moment ago, I spoke of Uber. While Uber has much to offer Japan, it's not a one-way street, so to speak. As many of us know, Japan has some of the most efficient logistical and transportation systems in the world. As Uber continues to expand, I think that the company can and will learn a great deal from Japanese partners and incorporate many of those services that Japanese here consider common. Take Takubin for just one example. I'm always impressed at the efficiency of moving around this country and how easy it is to travel in an efficient way. This type of cross-fertilization of innovation is what I hope will continue to grow between our two countries, and that starts at events like the one we are at here today. I hope all of you in this room are thinking in global terms and have your eyes one way or another on the United States, or for the US representatives here, I already know you have your eye on Japan. Clearly, cross-border thinking encourages and generates discovery and success. It doesn't hinder it. It opens markets. It doesn't constrain them. There may be cultural differences in the way our two countries do business, but the fundamentals of our partnership are strong and they are built on trust. We are two like-minded, democratic, rule of law-based societies that have deep ties and incredible respect for one another. So as someone who has lived and breathed the innovation in Silicon Valley before spending 4 amazing years in this country, I fundamentally believe that today we stand on the precipice of a new partnership that has the potential not only to change the world, but to develop it, protect it, and enrichment. Thank you so much for having me here today.